Now, several South African schools have turned into crime scenes this year. Most recently, Forest High School in the south of Johannesburg, where pupil Daniel Bakwela was stabbed to death. And then in Durban, teacher S'boniso Nyawose was murdered by an intruder at Masuku Primary School in Folweni. Well, Janke Tolmay is at Forest High School for us this morning. Janke, a very good morning to you. And, this incident happening last week, we've already seen a suspect appearing in court. It's another pupil at the school as well. What has the last week or so, what do we know about just what the mood has been at the school and what changes there have been in terms of safety and security, if any?
Well, Iveka, it's been obviously a difficult week following that incident. It wasn't an isolated incident in South Africa, but it is any incident like this is just one too many, specifically because it involved a number of pupils, basically violence between pupils. That's a growing concern in South Africa. And also because following that incident, the school was also closed for a couple of days because of allegations of a gang and a sexual violence also making their way out of the school. So a lot of concerns, but obviously schooling had to return to normal because also it is exams at this stage. The suspect appeared in court and was granted bail, and now there was some concern over that specifically, but they just had to take into account that this pupil was also still writing exams. We understand that he was then sent to another school, not to come back necessarily to Forest High because of the tensions that's in the community as well in the school. So a lot of focus on just how to address this in South Africa, and we saw even some people coming out saying that maybe teachers should be armed, and there was obviously not necessarily a good feedback from that suggestion. We heard people, parents and even the department raising concerns about that's just going to make the whole problem worse to bring more weapons into the school. But it seems like everyone is kind of running out of answers how to address this problem. So let's just take a listen to Elijah Mhlanga from the National Department of Education about their reaction to this specific suggestion.
The educational union is not a recognized union in the basic education sector. That's the first point. Secondly, we reject that call. It cannot be that we're encouraging people to arm themselves with guns to school. A school is not a war zone. A school is supposed to be a peaceful environment where learning and teaching takes place. And we cannot expect anything less. Where there are societal issues, we need everyone to form a partnership that will resolve those issues. We have studied these cases, and we found that in almost every instance where someone has been stabbed or someone has died, the aggressor knows the victim, or there was an issue that was unresolved that ended in a fatality, someone being injured, someone else being arrested. So these issues are not just random acts of crime. It's people who know each other, who don't have the skills and tactics and techniques of resolving conflict. That's what we need to do. Change the mindset. Don't be violent. Talk, discuss, get a mediator to help you. Don't shoot each other. Don't stop each other. That's not what we want. So this thing of saying people must go to school with guns is completely reckless, irresponsible, and dangerous.
Well, there are some questionable suggestions there, I suppose, Janke. But what are other experts saying about how we can deal with these, with the violence? It's not just teacher-pupil, it's pupil-pupil. And, what are some of the more tangible suggestions that we might be able to implement in our schools?
Well, one of the main points that everyone is touching on, that it's not just necessarily the schools that are the problem. It's often tensions in communities spilling over. It is societal problems that basically manifest in violence within schools. Some people suggesting bringing back corporal punishment. Other experts saying that will just worsen the problem because you can't address violence with violence, basically. But everyone calling for a holistic approach. It's not just going to come from the school. It's going to have to include community members. It's going to have to include parents as well as school governing bodies. But I do have here with me now Steve Mabona from the Gauteng Department of Education, just to hear from their side what some of their suggestions are about how to deal with this problem. Good morning, Steve. Thank you very much for joining me outside the school on this chilly morning. But it is a concerning ongoing occurrence that we're seeing in schools, specifically in Gauteng. How do you plan on addressing this? We've seen school safety summits. We've seen a lot of propositions on how to deal with it. What do you think we have? Where do we start?
Look, as the department, we are quite clear. I mean, the MEC has already amplified the message that inclusivity, it's key. I mean, if we are all taking part, playing our role as stakeholders, because we have said it, that as the department on our own, it will be difficult really for us to, win this one. Because you need parents, you need the SGB, the learner component. We also need, our sister departments, your community safety, your social development. Look at other NGOs that are operating around the schools. But the MEC was quite clear that now we also must drift into the transport. I mean, we know that in some of our schools, the transport are responsible for things that are happening outside, the drop off the learners, but probably people will still hang around and make learners to bank school. So we need to look at everyone. But today we are, launching our roadmap as the department for looking at the 2019 to 2024. The MEC will be outlining, on how we're going to move forward. But security and safety around our school is one of our priorities. We need to make sure that all of us understand on how we're going to be assisting each other. Among other things that he has already indicated is that we need to identify all the bullies. Like, for instance, we know that in any school you will find those learners that are bullies, are bullying around other kids. We will need to identify all of them. The purpose, not to single out them that we want to probably cast aspersion around them, but we must go there with the purpose of assisting them on, mending their lives, making sure that they understand why they are at school, why they're supposed to be not, bullying other children. Because if you have them, you will then have a situation whereby other parents are affected. Parents come to school and say, there's this learner who's a challenge, who's a problem for my kid. So we're looking at a holistic approach in addressing this one. We know that some will say there's violence, but what is happening at home? What is the role of parents? Do we have more time to spend with our children to make sure and understand that we understand a learner that we have and a child that we have at home? Because some learners will tell you that, look, at home I play along and be this person that they don't know, and when I come to school I become someone else. I mean, some of the kids at like for instance at Forest High, they were attesting to that, to say we lead probably two different lives, which we really need to work together as the entire parent body, all sector, stakeholders in the education sector at this entirety.
Okay, thank you very much. There you have it, Rebecca. Just once again making it clear that it seems like there's no easy answer, but the thing is it can't go unaddressed because it's children's lives at risk at the moment. So we would really need everyone in society to work together to address this ongoing concern.
The different